as Christians in living in today's world, we face so much discouragement and distraction. We have so many voices, almost like that we can't avoid, whether it be from TikTok or from YouTube or whatever other platform that you're using, constantly trying to distract us and lead us away. Things that are telling us the most awful news happening every single day to millions of people across the globe. Things like children being murdered, things like women being abused, and at a certain point it just becomes overwhelming and you don't really know what to do except for just to throw up your hands to God and say, please help me. Many in the church, many Christians kind of grow up with a Sunday school type of education. They don't really know much except for the main stories, quote unquote, in the Bible, like Noah and Adam and Eve, and of course Jesus on the cross. But other than that, there's no real solid foundation for their faith. Or their faith is rooted in a parent or a teacher, and their faith isn't really their own. It looks like they're almost like grandfathered into Christianity, but let's be real. Your faith must be your own. You don't go into heaven by being related to someone who is a believer. But in this world, we face so much discouragement and distraction. I've been a believer for pretty much my entire life. I was raised in the church in Queens, New York, and my parents are strong, solid believers in Christ, and I thank God for them. But even with that, I had to find my own way. In my early to mid-20s, I faced a lot of discouragement, and I just didn't know what to do anymore. I was on the verge of just giving up my faith. And I had held on for years and years. I'd read my Bible faithfully. I had been charitable to others, helping in ministries, on worship teams, all this stuff. For everyone else, I'd look like a perfect Christian boy. But I was left wanting, and in my time of great need, my faith was dwindling. I didn't know what to do. I was constantly discouraged, and in my deepest, darkest parts of my walk, all I can pray, all I can utter were, help me, Jesus, because I had no other words. I couldn't even know what to say. I was beyond despair. My faith was mocked by people, and I had held on to the promise that God has given me, that He had given me through a difficult season, but I was mocked for believing in what God had told me. I was basically homeless. I didn't have a place to lie my own head, and I didn't understand why God was doing this to me. I don't know why God was taking everything away from me. I didn't understand why no one had any sympathy for me. And even in my despair, I went to the pastor of my church. I said, I don't have a place to sleep. Can you please help me? And you know what he's told me? He told me to go to a homeless shelter. This supposed man of God told me to go to a homeless shelter, someone who had been faithfully going to the church for years. That's kind of what I was up against. I slept in my car a couple days, and I didn't know what to do. I was beyond despair. I was right on the verge of giving up my faith and my walk, and because, what do I do? Are you there, God? I can't hear you. Here's the truth. God is faithful to us. Even when we can't hear Him or see Him or feel Him, God is always with us. The Bible says that He will never leave us or abandon us. I just wanted to read the Psalm right here, Psalm 118, just a little portion of it, because I think it really encapsulates what we need to do as believers. Out of my distress, I called on the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me free. The Lord is on my side, I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is on my side as my helper. I shall look in triumph on those who hate me. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes. But what does it mean to trust? It's easy to be a Christian when life is easy and you have plenty of food and your job is going well and you have people who in your life who like you. But in that time, I had no one. I had my girlfriend, my now wife, but even her, she was going through her own things. And we both felt like we were alone, dealing with our own stuff. All I could do was call upon the Lord. That's what the Bible says that we must do in the times of great grief, is to hold fast. It says, wait on the Lord. It's actually in Isaiah 40. It says, those who wait on the Lord will mount up on wings of eagles. God will restore and rescue you. All you have to do is wait on Him. But that's easier said than done. I mean, so many people say, just wait, just trust God is sovereign. But without actually understanding what that means, it's just like, okay, that's like saying, oh, just swim. And when you're drowning, it's like, it's not that simple. You have to learn what it means to actually swim when you're in a drowning sea. But look, even Peter, as he was falling, he cried out to the Lord, save me. And that's what we have to do when we feel like we're in these storms. Because there are storms of life. They're called like the tempest, as they're called. These tempests come and we're thrown overboard. And we have to just look to Christ. But again, it's easier said than done. When I went through this stuff, I was truly, truly alone. I felt alone spiritually too. I felt God was so far from me. But I looked upon His Word. I read it. I studied it. And something that God brought me to in the Bible was Job, the book of Job. And Job was a man who had lost everything because this accuser, whether it be Satan or some other angel, accused him of not truly trusting in God. He said, no, he's only following you because you're good to him. You've given him everything. And Job was very wealthy. He was a very, very wealthy man with children and a wife, and he was good to everyone around him. So God allowed him to be tested and tormented in such a horrible way. He lost his children, he lost his family, he lost his livestock, everything. He lost his dignity, scratching at the deep sores in his skin with broken pots. These are some of the words that Job has said. Look, just read the kind of distress that he was in. He says, He has stripped from me my glory and has taken the crown from my head. He has put my brothers far from me, and those who knew me are wholly estranged from me. My relatives have failed me, my close friends have forgotten me. All my intimate friends abhor me, and those whom I loved have turned against me. Job was truly alone. He was in deep despair, had no one, absolutely no one, when he was being tested in such a deep, deep way. Like, imagine you lose your entire family. I can't even imagine that. But look, this is what he says. It's in Job 19. This is the heart that Job, he remained steadfast. And that's what he said. For I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand upon the earth. After my skin has been thus destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God, whom I shall see for myself. Job held on to the rock because there's nothing else to do. It's like, what else can you do? If you abandon God, if you say, fine, I won't believe in God anymore, what does that solve? You're still in the same situation, except you're even more distressed because you're like, I've given up God. God isn't real because times are good, because we have everything that we want. That doesn't make God real. God is real outside of those things. When you feel like giving up, when you feel like it's over, I don't know what else to do, hold on and just wait upon the Lord. That means cry out to Him daily. Even if the only words you can say are, help me, Jesus, that's all you do. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Look, if you read the book of Job, I highly recommend and encourage that you do. You see that Job was not perfect. He was kind of wavering in and out, but ultimately he stood fast and he did not depart from God. But you can see his struggle. So reading the end of Job, we see that Job humbles himself. Job ultimately says, God, you do great things that I can never even imagine. That I don't know why I've suffered this great, great plight. But alas, you are God, you are in control, you are sovereign over all. And then here it says in Job 42, it says, and And the Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he had prayed for his friends, and the Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. Then came to him all his brothers and sisters who had known him before, and ate bread with him in his house, and they showed him sympathy and comforted him for all the evil that the Lord had brought upon him. It says in the very end, Job died an old man and full of days. God is faithful to his people. God is faithful. Even when we're faithless, even as Job was in and out in his faith and struggling, realize this, that God is faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us of all unrighteousness. So hold fast to him. So remain close. If you're dazed, you can only say, God, help me. Jesus, help me. Help me, Lord. That's what you pray, because those are the prayers that I've prayed. But look, in the end, God does answer us, and he does lift us up. He does lift us up out of the pit. Just hold on. Do not give up. The book of Hebrews talks about, do not give up believing. That's what Hebrews 12 says here. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and sin that clings so closely. Let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. In your struggle against sin, you may not yet resist it to the point of shedding your blood. And you have forgotten the exhortation that addresses you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor be weary when reproved by him. For the Lord disciplines the one he loves and chastises every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you have to endure. God is treating you as sons. A little bit down it says this, for the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Just hear this. God is calling us to hold fast to him. Every day seek him and find him. Surround yourself with other fellow believers that can strengthen and encourage you. If you don't have a good church, please pray for one and seek one. And if not, if there's no one, how I felt when I found I had no one around me to help me. All we need is Christ. So just continue to seek after him and really pursue him, because Christ is all we need. Just like how Paul says in Philippians, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.